1 hour a week. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're just,
Well. Welcome to the June the 18th, 2019 school board meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to adjourn. Manual gavel at least works.
Order, not adjourn.
I mean adjourn. Did I say adjourn?
Adjourn the workshop.
I'm still in the workshop. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and our computers aren't working, so bear with us, please. And I'd like to welcome you all here. If you wish to speak during the hearing of citizens, please pick up a card in the back of the room, fill it out legibly, and pass it off to Kathy Tompkins, who's sitting to my left. And you'll be called up to speak at the hearing of citizens. And now would you please stand with me and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Of course, it's summer, so we don't have our usual entourage of students who are in our schools with us, but we're very fortunate today to have the students from Sarasota County's Boys and Girls Club STAR Leadership Training Program, and I want to welcome you all. STAR stands for Students Taking Active Roles, and believe me, these students take active roles in our community so that when they go off to college, when they become active citizens in their adult life, they'll volunteer. They'll be right there doing all kinds of interesting things. I'd like to invite the superintendent and any available board members to stay after this meeting to meet with the students for questions and answers. Welcome. At this time, we're going to have some special presentations. Today, the Leadership Academy graduates are joining us for a special recognition presentation by Dr. Carol K. Brown, the Director of Leadership Development, and Dr. Wendy Katz. Carol, Wendy.
Good afternoon, board members, superintendent, school board attorney. Sarasota County Schools began growing their own leaders in 2003. The district recognized the need to develop a deliberate career pathway and strong leadership programming for aspiring leaders. The Leadership Academy is the first step in the journey to become an administrator in Sarasota County Schools. This 2-year program is designed to prepare teachers to be successful assistant principals by not only arming them with educational leadership, professional development, but also going beyond that and providing them with real-world experience and training. I would like to take a moment to thank Dr. Wendy Katz, an amazing educator and an amazing woman. Wendy has dedicated 34-plus outstanding years to Sarasota County Schools. She was and still is a pioneer for growing leaders in this district. I must personally thank Wendy for the guidance, support, and mentorship she has given me. In life, you will realize there's a role for everyone you meet, but the ones who are truly important are the ones who bring out the best in you. Wendy, you are truly one of those people. I would like for everyone to join me in thanking Dr. Wendy Katz.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone. It's with tremendous pride and admiration that I'm thrilled to be here tonight to recognize Leadership Academy Cohort 8. I've worked closely with this group over the past 2 years and found them to be uniquely poised to enter the ranks of school and district leaders. Michelle Miller, who is an assistant principal at Glen Allen, was supposed to speak this afternoon. Her husband successfully underwent a heart transplant a week ago, so she's unable to be with us this afternoon. And so in her absence, I'm going to share a poem that the Academy actually wrote for their graduation, and I really think it speaks to the whole experience. The Leadership Academy Cohort 8 specifically has grown in their understanding of what a leader should be through mentoring and speakers and a little bit of love. The group has made connections of what a leader is made of. Reflection. A leader must reflect in order to continue to grow, ask themselves the tough questions, consider and change what they know. Confidence. Confidence was built little by little over time through speakers, book studies, interviews. Strong leaders always shine. Relationships. Leaders need their tribe to help when things get tough. The retreat, group projects, and table teams develop friendships among us. Networking. Providing opportunities to network through shadowing experiences and the legacy night has allowed us a greater understanding of what our community and school does right. Knowledge. Leadership is more than just experiences. It's understanding current trends, research-based practices. The learning never ends. Risk-taking. Taking risks is important, though incredibly daunting to do. It's imperative you push the boundaries for change to come from you. Empathy. Through poverty simulations and learning of diversity, we discussed how to be a safe place and develop a culture of empathy. Collaboration. Leaders never work in isolation. They are only as strong as their team. Collaboration is needed. Common vision, common dream. Mentorship. The mentorship provided was multifaceted and strong. We had our AP mentors and Wendy and Carol all along. Unity. There is something extra special about the unity of Cohort 8. We were instantly connected, future leaders to cultivate. Professional growth. Professional growth is necessary to continually strive for better. Leaders make it a priority to set goals as trendsetters. Leadership. The Leadership Academy, a tradition that creates its own, develops the district's future, Sarasota County, #1. Obviously, this group has really demonstrated their passion for helping children achieve academic success, their knowledge of sound instructional practices, and they are so motivated to serve as future administrators despite the challenges that we face in the times ahead. Before we finish with them, I just want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Bowden, the school board members, Dr. Kingsley, for the opportunity to serve this district for the past 41 years. I've had a chance to engage in work that I am passionate about, and I would do it all over again. Sarasota County District has really been my family away from home, and I cherish the relationships with so many individuals that I respect. I plan to continue to find ways as a volunteer to contribute to the district and our schools, and I just want you to know I'm really deeply grateful for your support and your confidence through the years. Okay, so in closing, Carol, if you're going to come up here and you're going to read their names, I believe, and as we call your names, we would like you to come up and to stand, and then there's going to be a picture, right? And we once again, congratulations in completing 2 years of rigorous leadership, professional learning, and modeling wonderful instructional leadership. And I will go over there.
Yeah, shake that. Danielle Ard. Lori Butters, Holly Chestnut, Gina Cirillo, Jade Ellis, George Goodfellow, Carly Gordon, Ryan Lee, Jessica Lucas, Kellyanne McWilliams, Nicole Mayo, Georgia Plath, Scott Schaefer, Brooks Tracy, Stephanie Balakis, Emily Webb, Shannon Fleming, Lee Malaco, Maureen Bassett. Thank you.
Can't see Bridget and you can't see Eric.
Right here, everybody. 1, 2, 3. One more. You got it. Thank you.
Talk about it, say some good things. First of all, I just want to say to Dr. Katz, you're one in a million. Such a great leader. You model all those things that are so important and so positive, and you've done so much to bring our leadership to where it is today, and I know Carol is going to continue to do that, and we just love you, and we hope we'll see you around and that you'll be always involved, because you're one of those people that we love a great deal, and we really thank you for all you've done for Sarasota County Schools. But I also want to say how exciting it is for this cohort and for your leadership, and I am looking forward to seeing you all out and around in the different schools that you'll be assigned to. So we need more leaders, and you're going to be our next best hope for great things in this district. So thank you as well. Mrs. Zucker.
I couldn't let this go by without saying something, Wendy. I've known you for, 20-some-odd years now, and it's been my honor to have been a small part of watching you grow and watch what you've done for this district. Thank you very much for all your time. I remember coming into Laurel Nokomis when you were there, and I was devastated when you left to take another job at the Landings because you were so perfect for that school. But then again, you were perfect in the job you have now with professional development. I don't think there's anything that you can't do that you wouldn't be perfect at. Thank you very much.
Mr. Robinson.
And I also want to echo Ms. Zucker and Ms. Goodwin's words. I met Ms. Katz. She was my landlord when I first started my business. And nobody else would rent to me, but she did. And so I'm forever thankful for that. I was literally across the hall from them, and I see the impact that she does for the. At that time, I just thought she was doing great things in South County, but now that I'm on the school board, I see her impression on the entire county, and it just multiplies with each class that she does, and they're almost like her children, and then she has great grandbabies because they they go on to leadership, and they're mentoring people. So they're taking the tools that Wendy has given them and multiplying it out. And I know that there are people coming from other parts of the state coming to take her class. So that's quite amazing. So thank you, Wendy, for everything you do.
Mrs. Brown.
I also want to thank Wendy, but also congratulate this class. I'm so proud that so many in our district want to take that extra step and give more and become part of our administration too, and to help our students along the way. But I think it really says something for our district, and Wendy and Dr. Bowden, when we want to promote from within. We don't want to have teachers that want to move up and have to go to another district. We really support our staff, and when they want to better themselves, we want to be there to work hand in hand with you and take you up there, because we want to see you retire in Sarasota County. We don't want to ever see you leave Sarasota County. We want to do what we can to keep you here, and please let us know. Hopefully, we'll be finding places for you soon. They're always moving around, but in the meantime, lend that helping hand wherever you can, because I know that's what you're all about, doing more for the district, and we really appreciate that, and we'll try to do more for you too. Thank you.
Thank you all. And next up, we have the superintendent's report. Dr. Bowden.
Yes, ma'am. We have a number of folks here, and I want to recognize a long-standing partnership that we have with Sarasota County Schools and the Sarasota County Library Partnership. For at least the last 6 years, Sarasota County Schools and the Sarasota County Public Libraries have been meeting to discuss how to form a true partnership that would extend outside of simply promoting the county libraries within our schools and distributing library cards. Over the course of the last 18 months, staff from the district's IT department and our instructional materials office have worked alongside staff from Sarasota County Libraries under the direction of Sarah Beth, I think I see you peeking through there, to provide students with access to a wide and varied assortment of digital learning tools and a vast collection of ebooks. So starting with the 1920 school year, all Sarasota County schools will have school students will have the ability to log into their student portal from any device and access level-specific resources across a variety of subject areas, including art, music, literature, language acquisition, and an assortment of reference collections, just to name a few. Now, I don't know if Sarah Beth knows this, but we're going to miss her. Sarah Beth and I have a partnership that goes back, and I tell you, I really got to know Sarah Beth as we were developing our Northport campus of Suncoast Technical College. And I'll tell you, she is a unique leader, and it was my privilege to work hand in hand with her as we kind of charted a new territory of what does a public school and a public library look like in the same building. And I can tell you that every meeting that I held with Sarah Beth, her eyes were on how do we best serve the residents of Sarasota County. It wasn't about protecting the interest of the county government or protecting the school district. It was we all serve the same group of constituents, and how can we best do that in this joint facility? So Sarah Beth has announced her retirement. Talk about big shoes to fill. I just want to take a moment to thank Sarah Beth for her guidance, her support, and her leadership in this great partnership, and wished her the best of luck in her retirement. So, We have a little tradition here, Sarah Beth, at which from time to time I recognize community leaders who've made a significant contribution to Sarasota County Schools over a prolonged period of time. And we do that through a coin that we refer to as our coin of excellence. And so if you would like to join me front and center, and any signage you might want to bring to get some, I'd like to present you with this coin. You got lots of cameras, so hopefully they don't.
Thank you. This is wonderful, very unexpected. And it's my pleasure to present this to you and the entire school, the board and your educators and your students, a giant library card representing all of those great resources that your students and educators are going to have access to. So thank you for the opportunity to work with you.
We look forward to seeing you volunteer in our schools in August.
I think Mrs. Brown would like to make a comment.
Sarah Beth, it's been a while since I've been, or I was down in Northport and a few places, ceremonially and things like that, but to be checking out a book, it had been a while. My husband was on my case telling me, boy, you should see what I can get. Now, he does it all on his phone or his iPad. He goes, I can read all these magazines. I can do this. I can do that. So I went down 2 weeks ago with my granddaughter, my brand new library card, and in fact, I've got some books that are due in my car right now. But you know, you used to have Blockbuster videos around, and they're all gone now. Well, you can go to the library, and there's a whole racks and racks of DVDs, if you still have one of those, and check out a DVD from the library, and some really vintage ones that are really cool. But there's just so much that you have to offer these days. It's not just a place to go to get a book, although my granddaughter found 4 of them that she wanted to read. And it was a really nice experience, and we're going to do it on a regular basis, even though I can do a lot of stuff online with you. But being there is great, too, among all those books.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Well, I want to echo something Dr. Bowden said, and it's that you indeed have there's big shoes to fill. I think it's interesting, when I came on board, there's a perception that who uses libraries anymore, right? So I would hear that all the time, and certainly with the Northport STC campus was a great exposure for me from this side, but now with my little ones and going to our libraries, I go to Fruitville all the time, and all the various projects you guys do for the community. But I'll just tell you, all of our libraries in this county are tremendous, and my hat is off to you. You will be sorely missed, but your passion, and you can tell you are absolutely dedicated, and it's so genuine. So I'm very grateful for all the work that you've done for this community, and you will be missed. So thank you very, very much.
Mr. Robinson.
So if you want to talk about the other things they have at the library, one of the cool things they have is they have Lego night. It's not at every library, so you got to get the special ones. And they bring out this biggest box of Legos you've ever seen in your entire life. It's supposed to be a Lego club, but you can just go to town on making Legos. They have other things too, but Lego night is Robinson night. So so there are other things. They have kid-friendly computers. So I know if my kid gets on a computer at the library, I know those filters and that they're safe for what they're looking at. So there are, like Ms. Brown was talking about the movies, there are so many things to do at the library. They're definitely changing with the times. And don't go to Lego nights because I don't want you taking my Legos. So thanks.
Mrs. Zucker.
I wasn't going to speak, but I can't miss an opportunity, Sarah Beth, to tell you what a big influence you've been on me and my grandchildren. The first library that they went to was the one in downtown Sarasota, where the fish tank is. And we would go not only for the books, but the fish, because that was a great experiment for them to be able to see all those fish. And then when Owen became older, he volunteered there. And he got a lot of his community hours from volunteering at the library. And we've been to the Gulf Gate one and the Northport one, and I can't imagine what this community would be like if it had not been for you and your great push to make sure that libraries were accessible to all. So thank you very much. You've left the mark on Sarasota. Thank you.
Sarah Beth, how many people do you have with you here today from the library? I know that I see our Ann Hardy's next to you. Ann, would you stand? Anybody else that's here with Sarah Beth, would you please stand? I know how hard you all work, and I know how important the libraries are in this community. I've seen that we're going to have some open maybe on a Sunday afternoon now, which is a big deal because we stopped that some time ago, and I can remember the outpouring of sentiment from a lot of people, which was, oh no. But you always seem to fall on the short end of budget cuts with the county, and you and I have talked about that for a number of years. When there was a shortage, it was like, let's see what we can do, and let's see how we can shortchange the library system. And I mention that because with a smile on her face, she just, set out working and doing all the things that she could do, whether it was a great budget or not a great budget. But you have been such an influence in this community. Some time ago, we discussed the fact that our library system is probably second in the state in the number of young children using libraries. That's for the whole state of Florida, and Miami-Dade is like, another country. And so that's a really big deal. We love our libraries. We use them very well. The new Venice Island library is just absolutely fabulous. But I want to thank you all. I want to particularly thank you and say that you're not leaving this community, I hope, and we hope that you'll be around and get to see more of you, but best of luck and best wishes to you in your new life come September. So again, thank you.
So there are a number of employees who played a supporting role, and I do see one in the back of the room. He's not big on public recognition, but Rob Manoogian is one of those individuals that if we didn't have him, the district just wouldn't operate. If you think about 40 schools, more than 3,000 teachers, 43,000 students, and we have one individual responsible for instructional materials to make sure that we have the right resources in front of our students. And so in addition to that, Rob's been our point person on hammering out this partnership with Sarasota County Libraries. So we'd certainly be remiss if we didn't recognize your leadership. Thank you. I do want to remind the board the next 2 days will be our Summer Leadership Institute. Tomorrow, instructional leaders will gather at Suncoast Technical College, and then our entire leadership team will be at Venice High School on Thursday. I also just want to recognize an event that took place this morning. I know a number of you were able to attend, but what a great outpouring of community support with our Dive Into Reading program. A great program that I've admired from afar up in Manatee County has made its way here to Sarasota, and it was just wonderful to see those kids from Brentwood this morning paired one-on-one with a reading mentor and having breakfast at Gecko's on Fruitville. And so I want to recognize that program and specifically your leadership in bringing this program to Sarasota. Before I conclude the superintendent's remarks, I do want to spend a couple moments and address the recent complaints that have been made by an employee regarding Jeff Maltzby, the school district's chief operating officer. I want you to know that I first learned of the initial allegations in a meeting with the complainant in mid-April, and action was taken immediately to resolve the concerns that had been communicated. Follow-up meetings were also held thereafter to ensure that the issues were being addressed. In early May, another meeting was held in which additional allegations were made by the same complainant. In addition to these new allegations, a written complaint was formally made about me and a member of our HR team regarding the handling of the situation. It became immediately apparent that an outside investigation was needed to manage the growing concerns and allegations put forth. Also, new documentation regarding these concerns were brought to the school district by a report filed with the sheriff's office And yesterday, we received word that an EEOC complaint had also been filed. In totality, the allegations today are much different than they were back in April. Yesterday, I also learned from the outside investigator that it will be weeks before a report about these concerns will be available. Because of the severity of these new allegations and the extended timeline to conduct the investigation, I made the decision this morning to place Jeff Maltzby on administrative leave, effective immediately. He had already been removed from his workspace and now will no longer work among staff until the investigation is concluded. Please note that due to the allegations made, there are several statutes in play that prevent the school district from commenting further about this investigation. And we appreciate your understanding that the school district's need for continued confidentiality on this matter. This is a critical time for our operations division as we prepare for the school year in August. This is really when they get a lot of their work done. We have a new director in transportation, and we have a new director in food service, and August 12th will be here before we know it. This morning, I had a conversation with Jody Dumas, our director of facilities, planning, and construction, and he has agreed to serve as our acting chief operating officer to get us through this period of time. I ask that during your new business, he is not on your personnel transaction report, but if we could have a motion to appoint Mr. Dumas as acting chief operating officer until the conclusion of the investigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have the hearing of citizens. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak, and when the timer flashes yellow, 1 minute remains and you need to begin to summarize. You must stop speaking when the buzzer rings. Please note that respect for divergent viewpoints and civility will be shown at every board meeting. Whether you agree or disagree with the speaker, you should listen positively and respectfully without making any sounds of approval or disapproval, including clapping. Calling the first person forward to the space to my right, Rick Costa.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Bowden and the entire school board and committee for this opportunity. My name is Richard Costa. I am a general music teacher at Venice Elementary. I've been there for about 3 years. January 30th, 2018, I fell at work covering for another teacher at their classroom. I fell on my head on the concrete, and I've had a lot of difficulties since then, cognitively. On workman's comp, I'm still working. My temporary certificate runs out the end of this month. I know the district has, in certain circumstances, extended a 1-year temporary extension. I have an effective rating. I have a very good rapport with the community, the students, the teachers. I'm also a musician, so I see a lot of my students out in the community. I really enjoy my job. Only 3 years in, and I've had no luck with getting some help. I want to get better. I am getting better, but I'm still under doctor's care. I'm seeing a neurologist right now, and I'm just having a difficult time processing and getting through the testing. My scores are going up. I've spent a lot of money in private tutors, which I'm not complaining about. I'm a fighter. I will get through it, and I will pass it, but I don't want to lose my position and everything I've worked for. And it seems all the avenues that I'm going down, I'm just hitting walls. And it's really frustrating. And like I said, I'm on workman's comp. I have a doctor's order not to test right now. And I've talked to HR about it, and they're kind of ignoring it. So I'm not here to make any waves with anyone. I just like that extension for the year to help me to rest up, get my certification passed, all my tests passed, and move on to the next adventure. But that's why I'm asking the board right now to take this into consideration. It is a time sensitive. My license temp will run out June 30th, and I'm really asking the committee to look into it and asking the HR to grant me this, which I feel that I'm entitled to. Getting injured at work. I'm a good worker, and I just want the county to support me. I'm not asking for anything that's unreasonable. I need some help and some time, and I hope that happens, and thank you for letting me speak. Thank you.
Dr. Bowden, could Mr. Renoff speak with him out in the lobby before he leaves?
Yes, both Mr. Sprinkle and Mr. Renoff have been working to address this issue.
Okay.
And are well aware.
Great. Next up, Nick Guy.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see some of you. Well, all of you, actually. What I have to talk about is nothing new, but I'm sure most people in this room are familiar with the topic, but it's good to review once in a while. In light of everything that's coming out regarding Mr. Robinson and some of his activity with other people in the community, I'm here with some folks tonight to talk about, kind of paint a picture and also tell the story that you may not have heard recently about Mr. Robinson is under investigation for in 2017 regarding money laundering with a Sarasota City Commission candidate. And like I said, this is nothing new. In fact, it's timely that on my way here to Red Light, I read an article popped up on FloridaPolitics.com about Florida being rated the most corrupt state politically in the United States. Legal corruption and illegal corruption. And it all has to do with money. And at the center of that is political action committees, who Mr. Robinson is currently, his name is tied to his treasurer or something or other of 31 within the state of Florida, 40 inactive. And what happened in 2017 with the money laundering with the city commission candidate is nothing new. It goes all the way back to 2013 with Manatee Against Taxation, getting involved with a campaign up there. 2014, a mysterious $40,000 that Citizens Against Taxation came into possession of from the state of Wyoming that nobody to this day knows, where it came from. Then you have 2016, and I tell you what, we are a long way from the Pulitzer days of the Herald Tribune and Michael Braga's in-depth article about dark money. I highly recommend everybody go look at that because it paints a very clear picture. And again, you do a lot of, you try. We all have a bad angel on one side and a good angel on the other. As broken as our politics is, as corrupted as it is in the state of Florida, the position you hold and the impact you have in this community, maybe it's time to just step away temporarily. Hey, when you're off the board, go nuts with the political action committees. Go crazy. But while you're doing this, having your finger on the pulse of so many rotten political things, frankly, going on, because it is broken. And I'm asking you to do the right thing because maybe, hey, who knows, maybe we'll be forced to do the right thing after this investigation is over because it's a very serious allegation. I mean, it's not, $200 fine for some cooked up thing on a mailer that Shirley Brown was accused of. But I just ask you to consider that and do the right thing because for the longest time you haven't been. Thanks. Have a great evening.
Carol Lerner.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Carol Lerner, and I'm speaking today as chair of Protect Our Public Schools Minnesota, generally known as POPS. On June 7th, a letter to the editor that I wrote for the Sarasota Herald Tribune was published. And in it, it explains our position, POP's position, that Eric Robinson should resign or be removed from the school board. So I'd like to highlight aspects of that letter. Sarasota County School Board member Eric Robinson was caught allegedly shuffling money from one managed political action committee to another, and then into the Sarasota Republican Party's coffers, so as to skirt campaign election laws. According to a June 2nd article in the Herald Tribune, Martin Hyde, the 2017 candidate for Sarasota City Commission, wrote a check for $4,000 to one of Robinson's managed PACs. Robinson transferred the money to a second PAC and then deposited it into the Sarasota GOP account, for which he serves as the accountant, according to complaints filed with the Florida Elections Commission. The GOP allegedly used the money to send out a mailer endorsing Hyde. This is money laundering, plain and simple. Robinson has been accused of this activity numerous times before, including during the 2014 school board election that elected Bridget Ziegler, but it couldn't be directly proven. This time is different because Hyde detailed the actions in a radio interview taped during the election campaign. In the June 2nd article, Hyde fully admitted his guilt and said he would accept any consequences. Hyde's admission directly implicates Robinson. Robinson must step down now or be removed from the school board position. Sarasota's school children deserve board members who are role models, not lawbreakers. Thank you.
Kathy, I don't think that the lights are working. Is everything going kind of AOL today? Can you check the lights on the front of the... Pardon?
He said
It worked for the first two.
Yeah, but it didn't work this last time.
First two, that's two.
Next up, we have Francesca Tulsky.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm a resident of Manatee. I'm a member of Protect Our Public Schools Minnesota, and I'm a retired Sarasota teacher. And I'm here to read an article that was in the Sarasota Herald Tribune on June 2nd, 2019, regarding the matter with Eric Robinson, for those people who may not have read it. A series of complaints lodged with the Florida Elections Commission alleges that the Republican Party of Sarasota County, former Sarasota City Commissioner candidate Martin Hyde, and two political committees associated with Sarasota County School Board member Eric Robinson violated election laws in 2017. Hyde said he's not going to try to defend what he did, and he's offered to settle the complaint against him and pay a fine. He said he's unaware it was a breach of the rules, and he blamed Sarasota GOP Vice Chairman Jack Brill for giving him bad advice. The complaints allege that Hyde, the Sarasota GOP, and the committees chaired by Robinson schemed to get around the prohibition of partisan campaigning by moving money from Hyde to a political committee and ultimately to the party, which paid for a mailer saying that the party backed Hyde in the March 14th election. This is an unusual case in that it peels back the curtain and very clearly shows how the money is being manipulated, said Ron Meyer, the Tallahassee attorney representing Michael Belleville, a Sarasota resident who filed this complaint. Meyer said it's no secret that political committees often are used to move money around and to obfuscate what is the overarching purpose of the election code, and that is to show who gave it and who got it. But such accusations can be hard to prove. The difference in this case is that Hyde openly discussed the arrangement during a radio interview. We know what goes on, Meyer said. It doesn't usually get detected because it's something that's covert, and rarely do the participants in these kinds of transactions come forward and acknowledge what they're doing. Hyde gave $4,000 to the Making a Better Tomorrow Political Action Committee on February 13, 2017. That same day, the Legal Reform Now Committee gave $4,000 to the Republican Party of Sarasota County. Robinson is the chairman and treasurer of Making a Better Tomorrow and also served in those roles for Legal Reform Now before that organization shut down last year. He also is the Sarasota GOP's accountant and past chair. On March 22, 2017, the Sarasota GOP gave Andrick and Associates in Sarasota 2 checks totaling $4,302.26 for mailers, according to campaign finance reports. Hyde's funneling of money through other political organizations to the Republican Party of Sarasota County so that it would produce a partisan mailer constitutes a direct violation of state law. Thank you. He should resign.
Jackie Horn.
Hi, I'm Jackie Horn. I'm not a retired teacher or anything, but my kids grew up in Sarasota public schools, and they're both doing just really fine in their lives. But I am here to help protect our students in the Sarasota schools, so I want to continue reading this article. This complaint also notes that the scheme was confirmed by Hyde himself during an interview with radio host Kathy Atunis, who asked Hyde why he contributed the $4,000 to Making a Better Tomorrow. That $4,000 went to a mailer that was sent from the GOP supporting me, Hyde said during the interview, which was conducted during the campaign and is posted on YouTube. Atunis then asked Hyde why he didn't use his own campaign account to pay for the mailer. It's a nonpartisan race, Hyde said, as it relates to coming from my campaign. My campaign can't directly send something out notifying me as a Republican. So it was suggested the Republican Party didn't have the resources to fund a city mailer, so I sent the money to a PAC, and it came from there. Simple as that. Citing a 2003 advisory opinion, the complaint says state law prohibits candidates from trying to get around the prohibition on partisan campaigning by coordinating with other groups to do partisan ads. Political advertisements done by others in consultation with a candidate must meet the nonpartisan requirement, the complaint states. Additionally, the Sarasota GOP violated a state law that prohibits political parties from accepting contributions that are earmarked for the partial or exclusive use of a particular candidate, according to the complaint. The political committees controlled by Robinson also are accused of multiple legal violations. In an interview with the Herald Tribune, Hyde said that he didn't intend to break the law, but made the mistake of taking advice from people who I thought would know what they were doing because they've been involved in American campaigns for a long time now. That was in quotes. And again, I was a babe in the woods, Hyde added, pointing to the fact that he admitted what he did to Atunis as evidence that he didn't know it was unlawful. I didn't do much of a job covering up, Hyde said. I didn't know I was supposed to cover up. Hyde blamed Brill for the legal entanglement, saying Brill should have known better. There's no question, Hyde said. Brill came up with the idea of the Sarasota GOP sending out the mailer and asked Hyde to pay for it. Quotes again, I suggested sending the check to the Republican Party, Hyde said. He told me to send it to the PAC. He gave me an address to send it to. Critics of Robinson have called him the Prince of Dark Money and say he has become an expert at shifting political contributions around to hide the true source of funding for attack ads and other political communications. Looking back, it looks like somebody trying to filter, to launder, to clean money, Hyde said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Louise Machinist.
Hello. That's Louise Machinist, spelled like machinist, and I'm going to finish the article. I've excerpted it. We just have a little more detail. I've never had to do that, Hyde said. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's appropriate. And if I had my druthers and my time back, I wouldn't do it. Attorney Ron Meyer said he views the entire scheme as a serious transgression. Quote, it really goes against what the law is intended to ensure, he said, and that is transparency, so that anybody can see who's giving the money and who's getting the money in political races. Meyer said the 4 cases tentatively are scheduled to go before the Florida Elections Commission in August. An investigator for the commission has completed his inquiry into the complaints, copies of which were obtained obtained by the Herald Tribune. The next step is for the Commission's General Counsel to present the cases at a hearing, either with the recommendations for settlements or the probable cause exists of election law violations. If any of the cases are not settled and there's a recommendation that probable cause of a violation exists, the Commission would vote on whether to accept the recommendation and refer the case for a hearing in front of the Florida Division of Administrative Hearings. And that's basically the end of the article that we want to read. I've only been here since 2015, but since I arrived in Sarasota as a taxpayer and resident, I've heard constantly the allegations of corruption and political maneuvering against Mr. Robinson. It's well known in the community. It's extremely concerning and disturbing to the taxpayers of the community on so many levels. The last time I attended a school board meeting a few months back, there was the issue of text messages, inappropriate text messages between Mr. Robinson and the sheriff. Others have called for his resignation, and I want to second that today.
Susan Majors.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Susan Majors. I've been a part of the Sarasota County Public Schools community for the past 20 years as a parent, a volunteer, a parent liaison, an advocate, and a community member. I've served as the chair of several district and community committees, including the Exceptional Student Advisory Council, the Family and Community Engagement Team, and the Sarasota County Developmental Disabilities Committee. It has always been my honor and pleasure to interact with district and school-based staff, believing we were working together in the best interest of our children. What I've uncovered and encountered in the past 8 months has been shocking. There was a group of students who were inappropriately moved from the general education curriculum standards and put on a modified curriculum intended only for children with significant cognitive disabilities. These children were robbed. They were denied an opportunity to be taught the same skills as their non-disabled peers, the skills required for post-secondary education and a decent job. The bar for them was set well below their capability level. As awful as it was to learn this happened, what was even worse? The cover-up. Internal meetings where the data, just numbers, were reviewed and a child's future was predetermined by people who may have never even met them. If a key number wasn't below a certain level, the child was dumped back into the general education setting without appropriate services or follow-up. The lack of instruction for several years wasn't even considered before making this decision. What happened to these children? One of them ended her life. Another child attempted the same, and without parental intervention may have been successful. When staff was called into account for what happened, there were more cover-up and lies. Where is the accountability for professional ethics? How do we trust you all with the safety and well-being of our children? Why are some of our children throwaways? The scores on a standardized test more important than helping them meet their potential, allowing them to become productive citizens. Everyone associated with this situation should be ashamed. Those of you in positions of power need to get to the bottom of this issue, find these children, and fix this problem.
Thank you. And this is the end of the hearing of citizens. Dr. Bowden, do we have additions and corrections to our consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am. After the agenda was made available to the public, item 7, an addendum was added to the instructional classified personnel report. Item 61, approval of Sarasota High School's TSA field trip to Washington, D.C. Item 62, approval of Northport High School's TSA trip to Washington, D.C.
Move approval of the consent agenda, including item number 7, number 61, number 62, and the appointment of Jody Dumas to acting Chief Operating Officer.
Do we have to make that a separate motion, or can we do that at this time?
That would be new business.
I mean, I don't know that it matters. It was announced before, as long as the board approves it in either form.
Got it.
Well, it was announced earlier, so there could have been public comment. There could have been public comment.
I love Jody.
61 and 62 are covered.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
We have one.
Mrs. Ziegler.
I'd like to amend the consent agenda and move item number 6 to new business.
Second. Second.
What is the purpose of moving the minutes to new business?
Well, as regrettably as it is, I believe there is information that took place at the end of the board meeting last on June 4th regarding some questions I had about equity complaints and any notifications. I have a whole timeline here, but I can go through that now or later, but I wanted to amend the minutes to reflect the conversation that took place.
We normally don't always put those kinds of comments in our minutes of the meeting. I think I know what you're referring to, and you're referring to the fact that you asked me if we had other complaints, and I said no. Is that correct?
That is, and I know we don't normally drill down to that detail, but given, like I said, a month-long timeline as I've tried to gather information with very limited information of myself, we just had a member speak somewhat similarly to some of the information I was trying to gather. I believe, for the record, in order for us to figure out what's exactly taking place and what's happening and how we can improve our processes, that the minutes should reflect what exactly took place.
Well, I'm got great concern about reflecting everything that's said, but I want to explain something to you since you're accusing me of lying to you, which I did not do intentionally. You ask about a complaint, and a complaint to me is specified as what we were talking about when we were talking about employees. So I thought you were asking me if we had other complaints. You didn't ask me if we had other litigating matters or if I received any letters from lawyers or anything else. And as I understand it, there was a lawyer's letter that I received February the 28th that was certified and received here at the school district. And that was given to Mr. Hardy, which would be my normal process. If he then was going to share that with a board member, that would be his right and his decision to make, but it would not be my decision to share that. I never bring every litigating matter to the board, or if I receive something, the superintendent, I think, received that same letter, and I can't remember how it was received by Mr. Hardy, but I want you to understand that I thought you meant another employee complaint, because we'd just been talking about our matter that we discussed earlier with Jeff Maltzby, and I didn't even remember the details of that letter when I was called by a reporter last week until now. So it is not my intention, nor has it ever been my intention, to not be honest and truthful with you or with any question that I'm asked here as chair.
May I follow up?
Yes.
I appreciate that, because as I've rewatched the tape, and I would not go as far to say lie, because I don't know if that's not where I'm going, but I think from a record standpoint, on May 18th, I sent an email regarding a Herald Tribune article that referenced a very alarming situation, including a Riverview student. I CC'd the board on this particular email, but it was to the superintendent and requested to see the formal complaint as well as any associated information pertaining to that. I did not receive a response, but did speak with the superintendent after our last workshop in May. I was intending to bring that item up during the workshop. However, it was a very contentious workshop, as you may recall, after the Argus complaint discussion, and didn't feel it would be in the best interest of that discussion. I got a brief update from the superintendent, but was told that, and even I had asked about potentially needing to go to executive session because of needing to understand it being privileged, and said it may not be at this time, but that he would be information would be forthcoming, to paraphrase. On June 1st, I sent an email CCing the board asking about the number of equity complaints, which I did bring up again on June 4th at our board meeting. So I recognize where you may not have been understanding specifically what I was asking for. I brought forward, but I did copy the board on the June 1st email that I had requested, and I said it made it very specific where it's equity complaints, including from parents and students or staff from 2017 to current. That's why I brought it back up on the June 4th meeting, and even if I rewatch it, I said, there's just been a lot of information coming back that we've been copied on, and I'm not going to speak to any specific issue because they're involving students. So I wasn't exclusively at all talking about employees. Now, so even if it wasn't understood that that's what I was specifically asking for, then after the fact, when the report comes out that there on June 14th from the Herald Tribune reports that there was in fact something sent on 2/28 received via certified letter, and then the day after the June 4th meeting, I asked the legal team received a response on June 5th and saying the school board and superintendent are in receipt of your letter. So the reason I want to reflect this question and answer is not to put you specifically on the spot, but the fact of the matter is that this has been like I've said, a month-plus long time frame of where I've been asking for information that I believe to be very critical, and in the event that, and I think it's important that the minutes reflect that. So whether it be that it was intentional or not, and like I said, I'm not citing that, but in order for us to reflect and say, how do we change our policies? How do we understand that this board holds whoever accountable when things aren't being done? When we have constituents asking us questions and you're blindsided, I feel as though I've made a very reasonable attempt to ask the questions and get the information, and it was not provided.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, and neither are you, or neither is anyone on this board. And when I get a question that is from another lawyer, I always give that information to Mr. Hardy to read, to decipher, and to decide who he distributes it to.
Fair enough.
And that's what I did I'm sure that's what I did, or it may have gone directly to Mr. Hardy in February because I couldn't remember, and I still can't remember. I know we tracked it down to the mailroom and so forth and so on. What normally takes place, however, is when I get something that's of a legal nature, I give it to Mr. Hardy. Now, do we want to major in the minors? Do we want to worry about everything that's in litigation? This matter's already in litigation. Correct? Correct, Mr. Hardy? This particular issue has...
Yes, and we will have our meeting to discuss it further on.
Right.
Today.
But that's my whole point is I am not a lawyer. I don't want to do the job that we pay Art Hardy to do. Some boards, and Art and I have discussed this, do we need to come up with a laundry list of every case that we have going and everything that's taken place and have him report that to us quarterly? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what we need to do. It's going to cost us more money, but if somebody thinks that they need to delve at that level, I have plenty of things to do. No, I'm not discounting the importance of this. I think this is a very important matter. But once something's in litigation, I am not the person to be involved in that with parents or with community members or anything else, as far as my understanding of what the legal process involves.
May I?
Yes.
So, again, I respect what you're saying completely, and I went back and rewatched, and I can try to think of various scenarios, and that may very well have been the case that something came across. I believe there was ample opportunity, again, as I followed up, but even still, even if it could have been shared with the board based on the request that I'd made beginning on May 18th, and I was truly to the superintendent and not to the chair, but the question I did raise was that I understand the chair and the superintendent received a notification that was pre-litigation, and I did not have the specifics. But the reason I want the minutes to reflect this is for us to put it so it's documented, but also so that we can enhance and even have the question and conversation that you just mentioned. Maybe perhaps there needs to be a change in process. But that's my motion. That's why I'm asking to move it to new business.
Mr. Robinson?
I think we're getting way off track. The issue in front of us right now is, should we move it to new business or not move it to new business? And my feeling is I would hate to force somebody to vote yes for an item and consent agenda that they wouldn't want to vote for. So if one of the five of us wants to remove something from the consent agenda, I don't have a problem with it, whether it's Ms. Brown, Ms. Zucker, Ms. Goodwin, myself, or Ms. Ziegler. If anybody, we should never be in a position of forcing somebody to vote for something that they don't support. I think that any of the five of us should be able to move it to the agenda, to new business. And then the next step is, what do you want to change in the minutes? Do they want to change? Are they abusing the minutes? Is this something that they're asking repeatedly? Or is this a one-time thing that someone's asked? And the other question is it what they're asking? Did that actually happen? I mean, if somebody's asking to change the minutes to something that didn't actually happen, then obviously I would be against it. But if somebody's asking something to be put in the minutes, it actually did occur. They're not abusing. They're not asking for detail. I think the discussion between between Goodwin and Ziegler, I don't think that's the type of discussion that should be in the minutes, and I don't think that she's proposing all those underlying facts to be into the minutes. I think she's just simply asking, at the last meeting, a question was asked and it was answered. Typically, we don't put that in the minutes, you're right, but, if a board member wants to, ask for a one-off time, I think that we should, as long as somebody's not asking for paragraphs and long things, I personally don't have it. So to recap, somebody wants to move something off the consent agenda. I don't want to force somebody to vote for something they don't want to. And if somebody wants to put something in the minutes and this is a highly unusual thing this person asks for, then personally, I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you. Mrs. Brown.
We have procedures, and normally our minutes reflect votes that are taken. They don't normally reflect discussions that are had. I understand your concern. I too, what is this we're talking about? Although I also was a little bit concerned when I received an email with this information about this student. Even though it is privileged information, I didn't like it coming on my email. I mean, I didn't even like getting it that way because somebody requested it and everyone had to have it, because I didn't even think that should be going on the email, period, because it could easily be picked up by somebody or accidentally forwarded. I think this is an unusual situation, and I understand that we will be discussing the case that you asked about. And on Friday, and I do believe that we probably ought to add something to our workshop agenda to discuss when we might want to bring legal issues forward to members or when members should be notified of things, because I think that's a discussion we could have. But changing our way that we keep track of our board meetings, I mean, there is a record. There is a record of what was said at the board meeting. There is a recording of what was said at the board meeting. The minutes simply list what's legally sufficient. These are the votes that were taken. The discussion is out there on YouTube. The discussion is out there on the website. If somebody wants to see it, they can go there and look for it. I mean, so it's still there. And now we had this discussion that's going to be there. I don't think we need to be changing the procedure for how we do minutes. And we've got our administrative assistant. This is how she does it. I mean, and I think that we should continue to do it that way. I don't think we need to be changing it for all these situations after the fact. There would have been a time to pull the item, and that time came and went. But I do believe that on our next workshop, we might want to talk about litigation and when we should be notified of it. Just because someone sends a letter that they intend to file doesn't mean they're going to file, and just because they file something doesn't mean it's accurate. But maybe we want to be notified of this. But I don't think we need to be changing the way we do our procedures. I mean, because everything that's in there right now, these are the votes that were taken. This is what was said on the meeting. The other information is out there for the public, for you, for anyone else to access. Obviously, there was a miscommunication, but it's out there on YouTube, it's out there on our website that you can go and hear word for word everything that is said at a board meeting. What's in the minutes is what the votes are. It's the official record. That's what I think we should be leaving it at, so we don't, because I think it's going to be getting rougher and rougher as we go forward between now and the next election. People be pulling things that are being said and wanting them put on the record. I mean, because I could say, well, I want everything that was said at the hearing of citizens. I want all of that put on the record. No, we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't put the comments on there.
And if there had been a situation where you didn't understand or you thought I was not telling you the accuracy, spell it out a different way or ask the superintendent about it, and the superintendent could have talked to me about it another time. There's a way, I mean, that we could actually have spoken about this. But, I certainly did not mean to, when I thought about complaint, I thought about an employee complaint, and that's exactly what I was thinking, is what employee complaints would only come up as far as us if it had to do with the superintendent. And so I thought, well, gee, maybe there's a lot of complaints that we don't know anything about. I mean, and I know that there are a lot of complaints that Mr. Hardy and our risk manager works on that I never see, we never hear about, we don't know anything about. So, I have some concerns, but, maybe they're my concerns. Mrs. Ziegler.
Just to address a couple different things
You're next.
that Mrs. Brown brought up. Again, I would, whether you take my word for what it's worth, but this is not something I would do normally, and I started off with I regret I have to, and I think and maybe it's a different time to talk about why I want to change it, but the other part was a process. I think something had said the time had come and gone to pull it. I would have loved to, with Dr. Bowden provided me with our procedures for the school board procedures, which said I had to make the motion to pull the minutes. I didn't have evidence that any letter existed until at Friday night when an article was posted at like 7:55. I sent the email on Friday at 9:15. I mean, this is very technical, but I did it as soon as I was able to identify what specifically was being alluded. I asked a question. If you go back and watch the YouTube, unfortunately, it wasn't registered at all in the tape. So that's why I'm asking for it to be removed, to amend them, and be done with it.
Mrs. Zucker.
Well, I am not voting to move the minutes to new business. We have a process, and we are following our process. And if we start moving minutes to new business, it will continue to expand and expand and expand, and every word that we say will then they'll want to be put in the minutes. That's ridiculous. There should have been a recording. I'm sorry there wasn't a recording, but I'm just not going to go down this road. It's ridiculous, and I'm not doing it.
Okay.
Mr. Robinson.
If I can offer a compromise.
No.
Guess
no.
That tells you that.
Well, right ahead.
Well, I like to offer. May I still offer my compromise, Madam Chair?
Go right ahead.
I think that we should be able to pull this off into new business, and then when she makes her amended minutes, I think you guys, from what I hear from you guys should simply vote no against her new minutes. I don't think that it's fair to require a board member to vote when there may be items on here, so she's going to be forced to vote. I don't know how she's going to end up voting, but let's say for the sake of argument, she votes no. Well, maybe she supports the Northport trip. Maybe she supports, these grants. To force a board member to vote no on something for all these other items goes against the principle of having a consent agenda. I think if one of the five wants to pull something off, to put one of us in that precarious position just isn't fair. I just think people can use this as gamesmanship, especially when Ms. Brown talked about politics. They could put stuff in the consent agenda that somebody likes, and then put a bunch of stuff in the consent agenda that I don't like, and then force people to take positions. I just don't think that's a good way to do it. I think that we should be able to pull this up to new business, and then, as I expect, when Ms. Ziegler makes her motion to amend the minutes, you guys are free to vote no, and then she's able to vote yes on on all those other items. You're able to vote no on the minutes, and I just think that not allowing people to pull things from the consent agenda can lead to some various, bad consequences. So that's my idea of you guys can still vote her down for the minutes, but not force a board member to vote no on things that they want to vote yes to.
Mrs. Zucker.
We have a time limit on when we can pull things and move things from the consent agenda to new business. The timeline was not followed. It was 2 days before, and it was already published. The community had notice of what it was that was on our agenda, and to pull it at the last minute and move it to new business is wrong, because the community doesn't have the opportunity to know what's going on. And we have a process. Do you want to follow the process or not follow the process? If you want to change the process, then change the process. But right now, I'm following the process.
Mrs. Brown.
I don't believe that anybody would be forced to vote on this. I mean, when you look at approving the minutes, you look at what the minutes, all the votes that were taken on the minutes, if there's something in those votes that she does, but what you're approving on approving the minutes is you're approving the votes that were taken. That's what the minutes are. It gives you the date, what was, what actions were taken. The comments that are wanting to be added to the minutes are not normally in the minutes. They are in the tapes. I mean, she said she looked at the tape and then said this, and then I don't know what is on. I mean, the discussion has definitely been here. We've had it in this meeting. Okay. The minutes do not reflect comments made between board members. The minutes reflect the votes that are taken.
Mrs. Ziegler.
To Mrs. Zucker's comment about process, which ironically, as I've requested before, our board operating procedures have never been ratified by this board, and I find that we pick and choose when we want to use them based on who's requesting them. However, factually, an article came out Friday night at 7:45 online that indicated the question that I had posed that gave me information and evidence of such question that I didn't have before that. So for me to request to change it any time before that would have been impossible because I didn't have the information that I actually had in fact requested of our superintendent with all of you guys CC'd on the board. So the evidence to support the question that I'd asked was only provided on a Friday evening, therefore would have prevented me from following the quote-unquote procedures, like I said, that have never been adopted by this board, and we pick and choose when to use them. I just would simply I have an amendment. I'd close on my amendment. We can vote whether or not to pull the item and then move forward.
Mrs. Zucker.
Call a question.
Well, before I call the question, I'm just going to mention this one. Okay. All right. All those in favor
of call the question?
Please vote back.
We're now voting on the amendment, which is to pull item 6.
Yes. We're now voting on the amendment to pull item 6. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. You might know.
No. All those that do not are not in favor, please signify by saying no. No.
Can you do a roll call? What was that?
So let me make this suggestion. Hold on a minute. You probably agree with all the rest of the minutes except for that suggestion. Is that correct, Mrs. Ziegler? How about if we make a notation of this board meeting at the very tail end of it, we have a discussion and we cover whatever is said at the end of new business as though it were the June 4th meeting, and we discuss it then, and it's in these minutes. What would be the difference in that?
Well, because one took place at a board meeting. I mean,
well, you can stipulate.
Sure, I will.
I mean,
but
at least you have made it on the...
We just went through like a 15-minute conversation of, well, board minutes are only supposed to reflect votes.
So they are, and we shouldn't have all these comments reflected, period, I don't think, on either. But I'm saying if it's that important to you that somewhere you can say, I asked Jane Goodwin this question, she told me something that was not true, and so therefore if you want to go over that at the end of this and have Kathy so reflected in these minutes, we can do so. Mrs. Zucker.
This is ridiculous.
All right.
No, it is ridiculous. We have voted on the issue.
All right.
It's not contained in the minutes. It's
So we have had the additions and corrections to the consent agenda. So we are now ready to vote on the consent agenda as presented with changes to items number.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't believe as chair you've registered the vote on the amendment, that either the ayes have it or the ayes do not. So if you could close that by either declaring one side prevailing or to call the vote.
I'm sorry.
Individually. We've not closed out the amendment by.
The ayes.
The nays.
Pardon?
The nays have it.
the nays have it.
The nays.
Why?
Because then you don't move it to new business.
Oh, the nays have it. I'm sorry.
I have my thing.
The nays have won this amendment, and now we're ready to vote. But before that, Mr. Robinson.
I don't know how else to do this, but I'm going to vote no, but I don't know how to do this. I'm voting no. I don't, because I like everything else but the minutes, and so this is a weird way to do this, but, so I'm going to be voting no, but I really want to vote yes for everything else but the minutes, but since we couldn't pull the minutes, and this won't be in the minutes because it's a discussion, but someone will be able to see the YouTube video that, again, I'm going to be voting no, even though I want to vote yes, but I'm being forced by my fellow board members to vote no.
All those in favor of the approval of the amended.
Like has hers, because I guess she wants to make the same statement.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Ziegler.
This is weird.
I unfortunately and very surprisingly will have to be voting down a whole series of things because of a small, I believe, amendment that I requested for one item to be pulled and was unable to do so. So for the record, that is not the case. There are a number of things, almost all of which I support, but as a matter of clarity, because I have been blocked from pulling an item, I will have to vote down the consent agenda.
Now these minutes are going to say that we don't support those things. How is this going to work?
You're going to vote yes or no? Jeez. All those in favor of the approval of the amended consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against, please signify by saying no.
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 The ayes carry 3-2.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
May I ask that the minutes reflect that the reason that Ms. Ziegler and Mr. Robinson voted no was in regards to a amendment to pull the minutes to have a reflection from a discussion that was made in the June 4th.
Yes.
A question that she asked about pending litigation or complaints.
A complaint.
And that was...
Had I received any other complaints?
That Ms. Goodwin answered no. And Ms. Goodwin tried to explain that she misunderstood and that there is going to be follow-up discussions on this issue. So it reflects the reason why they voted no.
You just want a short blip. You don't want to die.
Next, we have new business. Let's get going with this. Item number 48. Are we all together? Which is the selection of an internal auditor. Do I have some comments?
Well, they got to make a motion.
Yeah, motion.
Well, we're going to have a comment. I thought we had to have comment
Somebody has to
first.
make a motion, then you make an audit.
Well, I thought we were.
I move that we hire CGI for our CRI for our risk assessment process.
Second.
Any comments? Eric Robinson?
Yeah, so the two people that we talked about were RSM and CRI, and I want to, for the benefit of the people who went to the workshop, I just want to go over the reasons why I supported CRI over RSM. First thing is, they're cheaper by 25%, And while it may not seem a lot now, but if we hire them as our eventual internal auditor, it's going to snowball. The 25% will get greater and greater. CRI has a local office in Sarasota. I think it's curious that I think it's incumbent upon us to not punish local CPA firm or local vendors. We're not even talking about local preference, but it's been suggested that we shouldn't do business with people local because we don't want anybody who have local relationships with local businesses. And these are the companies who pay referendum. These are the companies that pay the property tax. And to actually have not local preference, but local dispreference, I don't even know, I'm sure if that's a word. I'm sure if English teachers here are going to be able to tell me that. One of the other things is if we're going to eventually have them to be our internal auditors, I think it's incumbent upon us that we engage people who are actually CPAs. The people who are going to be heading up this project for RSM are not CPAs in the state of Florida.
Yes, they are.
I think it's also incumbent upon us that we look at the quality of the work that these people provide. And so as I discussed earlier, and I believe everybody has the reports in front of you, is first off, RSM was disciplined, not accused, but they were disciplined in March 2019 by the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board for a variety of things. But one of the things that they were disciplined for was the fact that they didn't report that they were also disciplined by the Security and Exchange Commission and the Chicago Board of Options Trade. So I don't know, those aren't the kind of people that I want to bring into our district. They have other complaints, but this is just the one that's the most recent complaint. CRI has no complaints or discipline actions from Pcaob, and the Pcaob has been around for about 15 years, so to have no disciplinary actions is rather incredible. CPA firms have to go through peer review, and they pull a variety of audits that you do. And what we had talked about earlier, the companies that they audit, that they're part of the peer review audit, those are secret, so that they can share financial information with the Pcaob. Pcaob doesn't in turn release the financial information. Of the 11 audits that they pulled, 6 of them related to testing controls for purposes of the opinion had deficiencies. 9 audits related to the substantive testing performance for the purpose of the opinion of the financial statements. I can go on, but of the 11, just about every single one had an error. Their report lasted a little over 53 pages and outlined all the different deficiencies they had. CRI also had the same type of peer review, and if I can read to you what was said, this review did not identify any audit performance issues that an inspection team view resulted in the firm failing to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to support an audit opinion, which is basically a clean audit, meaning they pulled all their audits and didn't find one single error. And I also want to point out that the local, cheaper firm also is the person who signed the transmittal letter is also CPA, but is also a partner level. So higher quality work, local, cheaper, higher qualifications that are CPA, and our interface is somebody who's on the partner level. I think I don't see how you can look at these two objectively and not say, I want to go with with CRI. I mean, I'm sorry?
The guy's name you just used.
Carl Riggs and Ingram, that's the name of the firm.
Yeah, that's the name of the firm, Carl Riggs and Ingram. It's 3 people. It's 2 men and a lady. They're from Alabama and from the Panhandle of Florida, Low Alabama. So that's where Carl Riggs and Ingram. That's what CRI stands for. So, but I'll keep using CRI if it's confusing people. But I objectively, every standard you look at, quality of work, local preference, dollars, qualifications, I don't know what standard you would use that you wouldn't pick Carl Riggs and Ingram, and especially given the disciplinary action that was just literally a month ago for Pcaob, Security and Exchange Commission, Chicago Board of Option Trades, and the latest peer review that was done for the 2018 period. So I'm going to be supporting this motion.
Mrs. Brown, did you have something to add? You were there and then you were gone on the
Well, I was
queuing.
waiting if somebody else was going to speak.
Well, I would like to say that I will not be supporting CRI, and it's for these reasons. Number one, CRI is a Bradenton local firm. They're a much smaller regional player than RSM, and I think Eric has a personal friend there. With this being the former Shannon Company, that's of concern to me because I think it's better if we do not know anyone there. RSM is the fifth largest, ranked fifth in 2018 in the top 100 firms. They do have CPAs in Florida. They have 8 offices in Florida. They work with 6 school boards that I checked with, that talked with both school board members and superintendents. CRI works with 1 and perhaps is moving into 2, but I really didn't find that they were doing risk assessment or the overall internal audit work with Broward County. So for that reason, I know that RSM has a lot of people who have worked with Cherry Burkhart and have a great relationship with them, and they think they're of the highest caliber. I don't know about these financial issues. I will certainly look into those, but I think that they're an excellent choice, and I'll be voting for them. Mrs. Brown.
I think sometimes when you're a larger firm, you're just a larger target, and you've got more cases that are going on around the country, and you might get more audits or more findings than a smaller firm. While yes, it is a little disturbing, and I appreciate you bringing those forward to me, but. I guess it's thou dost protest too much. I have concerns that a certain board member seems to be pushing for one firm so much. And when I saw that we were looking at a contract changes or coming up with a new contract with somebody local presenting themselves in the middle of those discussions, I just have a concern when, a fellow board member calls somebody who worked on my campaign and says, I'm gonna take her out, and the superintendent, and then would be in a position that perhaps would have undue influence on who our auditor would be. I find that hard to accept, and I find it's disturbing to me that I can't fully trust and have confidence in another school board member. But I look back, on an apology I received last year, and even in that apology, there was a lie. I didn't make those text messages at a workshop, and my God, there they were. There's the timestamps. So I honestly, I have some trouble with that motion, and I can't support it, only because I have some concerns about why there are such strong feelings from someone.
Mr. Robinson.
To turn around and to bring up something that has absolutely nothing to do with this, I think we should stick to the issue at hand, and to say, because I assume there's going to be another motion and you're going to vote for RSM, and for me I would never say because you support RSM, another vendor, somehow or another that is calls into question your ethics. You're entirely, I didn't interrupt you when you were talking, you're entirely allowed to support the vendor that you want. I gave objective reasons why I supported them. Nobody has disputed one objective reason that I gave. Instead, they made personal, unwarranted attacks towards me. And yes, I'll say it again. Before I came on the school board, I sat on the Board of Accountancy, and Mr. Riggs sat on the Board of Accountancy with me. I have not seen Mr. Riggs in 3 years. Mr. Riggs lives in Destin, which is, I do not expect Mr. Riggs to be coming down to our school district. I'm not even sure, I would imagine that Carl Riggs and Ingram doesn't see clients that much, if I had to guess. But him and I have not talked again in over 3 years. We sat on a board together, and it is possible to sit on a board together with somebody and not be personal friends with them. So the mere fact that I happen to know Mr. Riggs from a previous life of Board of Accountancy, that I sat on the board with him for 3 years ago, I can't even figure out how that's even germane to the discussion. I just hope that we can stop with the personal attacks and just talk about objectively the qualifications of the various firms and not bring individual personalities or attack individuals.
I too would like the not attacking personals, because I understand that there was an attack made to someone on me on Saturday. So it's that I have concerns about. I have concerns about this, and that's all. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought up last year. Maybe I was just trying to validate why I have these concerns. But these are my concerns. And sorry, I don't mean to make it personal.
Mrs. Zucker.
Hate to do this again, but I call a question.
All those in favor of choosing CRI as our internal auditor risk assessment firm, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. The nays have it 3-2.
I would move that we accept the, where I am.
RSM.
I would move that we select RSM as our internal auditor. Sorry, my voice is going.
I second.
Mrs. Ziegler, do you have something that you'd like to add?
Yeah, and this says selection of internal auditor. We're currently only talking about selection of who's going to do a risk assessment. So can you amend the motion?
This says.
That's correct, but we are only talking about from a risk assessment. We are not hiring them for an internal auditor.
I would move that we hire RSM for the risk assessment. Risk assessor, excuse me.
Second. Ms. Robinson, any discussion?
Ms. Brown go first.
Under new business, it says it's selection of internal auditor.
I know. That's why I read that.
Well, that's what I have here too.
So
we're at a disadvantage with not having a computer. So
why are we not?
Because we are choosing our risk assessment option first to have someone define those things, and then we will choose an internal auditor after that risk assessment is defined.
Okay.
Correct?
So all right, I'll change my.
Okay.
So we need to change the minutes.
I did. I changed.
Okay. Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, so if I can just clarify it, if I remember correctly, I believe we hired these people to do the risk assessment because Becker could only perform test functions because of independence issues.
Correct.
And so since this is a non-attest function, we have elected to go out with this company to only do this one particular part of the internal auditor piece. And then I think the board will probably reevaluate, and so when we ask them to do an attest function, we may very well end up going with Cherry, and if we do a non-attest, if we do a non-attest function, we may again go with RSM or somebody else.
Or CRI.
Or CRI or somebody else. Right.
Somebody else.
And I just want to state for the record that, the board members who support this vendor contract, I don't believe that there's any shenanigans on their part for supporting this vendor. They are perfectly, allowed as an independent school board member to support whatever vendor that they want, and that's perfectly within the purview of a school board member to support a vendor that they want. And I don't see any shenanigans or have any problems with somebody who disagrees with me.
Mrs. Ziegler.
I didn't have a chance to speak on the last one as to why I suggested CRI, but as I believe we're very eloquently articulated by my fellow board member, Mr. Robinson, I won't be supporting RSM, not because I don't believe that they are capable. I have done my due diligence and I'm familiar with other school districts in which they are their actual internal auditor, not just doing the risk assessment. I believe that we had two options, and they were outlined, like I said, a number of ways, that there is a local presence and that the financial benefit. So for me, I don't believe this was, of the two options, the best option, which is why I made the initial motion, and we'll be voting this down.
Mrs. Brown.
I, too, will be supporting RSM for the risk assessment based on information from other school districts that have used them. I feel comfortable with them for the risk assessment, and I want to again take this opportunity to apologize to Mr. Robinson for any offense I may have given.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, there are no other comments. All those in favor of choosing this option, RSM, for our risk assessment for our internal audit function, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who do not choose, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
So we have 2 nays, 3 yes, so the motion passes. Moving on now to the next item, item number 49, approval to advertise the revised Code of Student Conduct.
I can't remember.
Do I have a motion?
Change this. I can't remember.
I move that the board approve the advertised changes to the Code of Student Conduct as presented.
Second.
Is there somebody going to explain, we got a lot of changes in the conduct and then the policies? I mean, because there's...
Do we have someone coming forward to just briefly give us a summary?
Is this 5.0?
Do you have specific questions, or do you want an overview?
I can tell you.
Just a brief
overview, please.
I can tell you what the changes are. Want me to tell you what the changes are?
Just briefly why we're doing it.
Oh, it's a required annual activity is why we're doing it, but...
Right. Every year, the board has to adopt a code of student conduct. I know that there are some changes. I've not gone through all of them, but I was involved with some of them with Dawn Clayton and Steve Cantese and other staff members, and some of them are in relation to legislative changes. I think there's also an attempt to
I think a lot of it has
make more clear various offenses and consequences. Ms. Figueredo-Ablerts may have more information, but this is a requirement of statute that the board review and adopt a code of student conduct annually.
That is correct, and also because of the new Bill 7030 and the past Bill 7026, we were able to meet with Mr. Hardy and review the Code of Student Conduct in alignment to CESAR report, how we report to the state. There's all new requirements, and we are also integrating a lot of the required structures for restorative outcomes for students who commit a violation of the Code of Student Conduct. So we can, in the future, bring it to a workshop and review it very specific to you all, but it's really making it clear to our administrators who are responsible to follow through and align to statute.
I'm sorry. I don't think I need it on a workshop, but I know there was one particular thing that's different, and that is that all Level 3 offenses will result in out-of-school suspension, and possible recommendation for expulsion has been taken out, that automatic, because of what we're doing with the restorative justice things. Correct. And that might be a big change for some people, but I think we need to just point out what we're doing.
Or there's a lot of framework of integration of restorative strategies in the outcomes of discipline, and you also have to be aware of alignment to statute that is based on the safety bill too.
I agree with what we're doing. I just wanted to make, because when you look at the item, I don't know what when I looked at it, I didn't get any backup on what it was. I had to look on my thing. So when the public are looking at it, they don't see what it was. And I just wanted to make them aware of it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. If there aren't any other comments, may I have a vote. Yeah, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. The ayes carry 5-0 unanimously. The next item up is item number 50. Mr. Robinson.
This is just, I make a motion that we approve to advertise the revised school board policy of 4.31 of the school board policy library. Then I wanted to make a comment after we made the motion.
Do we need to add in that we were changing?
The discussion at the workshop on 4.31, which is community speakers, was the board had indicated it wanted to amend the proposed policy by leaving in what had been deleted under Roman numeral 2D, paragraph 2D.
That was part of the revised school policy that I made the motion about. That was included in my revision.
So as I understand the motion that Mr. Robinson has made is to approve policy, the revisions to policy 4.31, including keeping in paragraph 2D.
Correct.
Second.
Mr. Robinson?
Only because this is the only time I get to talk is during the comment of an actual thing. For the next couple ones, if in the future, if we could put the actual title of the policy that we're amending, it would make things a heck of a lot easier so you know whether you want to click on or look more. By just saying 6.29 or 7.70, I mean, just to add the title of the policy.
Particularly on days like today where I don't have a computer.
Especially on days like today, it makes it really, really hard to know what it is I'm doing.
Noted.
So, thank you.
Mrs. Ziegler.
I just want to commend the whole team on this policy. It's on, I'm trying to read here. I believe that this is for guest speakers, right? Yeah, okay. Just making sure. I think that if you didn't see today's workshop, it was, I think, an incredibly thoughtful process. And while there have been incidences that happened in the past, overall, I just think it's streamlined. It's a little bit, there are more processes, but I believe it's in the best interest to protect the district and all students. And I just really want to thank the team because I think you guys were very thoughtful. And I truly appreciate it. And I believe that there are many in the community who will as well. So thank you very, very much.
Mrs. Browns.
Yes, I too want to compliment the team that brought this forward and made it clear that, if we're going to have a speaker that's going to come in on an issue that might be controversial on substance abuse, violence prevention, mental health and emotional well-being, and then, sex ed, HIV, there's a procedure to fill out, and it's going to be online. And schools will get a list of who's been approved, and there will be a process for it to be taking place. So I appreciate that and support for this advertisement. We're just advertising it now, and we will be voting on it. Is it 6 weeks?
First meeting in August.
First meeting in August.
Hoping there are no more comments, shall we vote?
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying no. The ayes carry 5-0 unanimously.
I would move that the current school board policy 5.201 be deleted from the school board policy library as presented.
Second. Any discussion? Mrs. Brown.
This is on student transportation, student out-of-zone transfer choice, some language, and I would imagine we don't need it anymore.
That is correct. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. The ayes carry 5-0. On to item 52.
That the board approve the advertisement of the new school board policy 5.305 to be included in the school board policy library as presented.
And for the board's knowledge, this is a new policy relating to threat assessment teams that came out of the legislative changes of last year.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. The ayes carry 5-0. On to item 53.
I move that the board approve the advertisement of changes to School Board Policy 5.32 on the library, and that has to do with zero tolerance, making some minor. It's changing. It's an acts that pose a serious threat. We're taking out the word serious, and this says acts that pose a threat. And there's some other language that's been changed for the new Marjorie Stoneman Douglas.
Right. This is also in response, the one you pointed out, and
safety.
the other ones are specific responses to statutory changes.
Second. Any comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, signify by saying no. The ayes carry 5-0. It passes unanimously. On to item number 54.
I would move that the school board approve the advertisement of changes to School Board Policy 5.38 of the School Board Policy Library as presented.
Second.
And
Mr. Hardy.
Madam Chair, and board members, I'd point out that this is about the student use of electronic devices, and you all discussed this at the workshop and indicated that you wanted to change language in the 3 bullet points regarding elementary, middle, and high school students to change language that says the students will have devices silenced, put away, and not used at all times for each of the various levels.
Second. Mrs. Ziegler?
Well, a couple things. That is what was said, and I think there needs to be some clarification, and then I can go into my particular thoughts. I don't want to direct a member of staff, but it appears that one of your members of staff has Dr. Kingsley. I just want to make sure, because I don't know if that language is necessarily representing specifically what was wanted to. I just want to make sure. If all times, so if it's all times, but then there's certain allowances, I think it's a bit contradictory to the language.
I think, Mr. Hardy, I think you were referring to the very first sentence.
I read the elementary student portion of it.
Okay.
For middle school students, it would read, middle school students will have devices silenced, put away, and not used except when under the supervision of a staff member for use during specific class instruction. And there's a little more, which I won't read. For high school students, each level is different.
That's why I wanted to clarify, so thank you. Then, I know that this is something both Mrs. Goodwin and I had brought up in general. I think it was high time we reevaluated it. I know my stance was probably on the much more extreme side, and I will still hold that proudly. Most of the reason being is that I find that I do believe that the educational environment should be as clear of distraction as possible, and that is very hard these days. But not only that, the feedback that I received, what you consistently hear about students and mental health, and just this level of confidence, and the amount of time that I feel that young developing minds are spending, and how dependent they are these mobile devices and social media. If we were able to minimize that in any way, shape, or form, I believe it would have a beneficial impact on their well-being and their ability to learn and enjoy and be present in the learning environment. The second other part I had was the enforcement, and that seems to be, and I got an email just shortly, not too long ago before this meeting, brought up the enforcement piece too. So I know we addressed it in the workshop. I do appreciate the work. I think that while my side was extreme, I'm going to support this because I think we're moving in the right direction. But I just want to reiterate that what my big concern is that in that gray area of middle and high school, it being such that the teachers who choose to not utilize these devices for any learning are respected with those rules, and that any kind of from the school board to the superintendent to the executive directors all the way down. I fear we will have a huge basket of devices if they're collected, and that was my other concern, just fixing one thing and what's the unforeseen consequence? Do we need to have safes at each one? But there is a process that will happen if students don't comply. But I want, so anyway, I believe that we're moving in the right direction. I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's gone into this, and hopefully we're moving in the right direction.
Mrs. Brown.
I too think that, we're moving in the right direction on this. The reason why we changed it to say that that they will be silenced, put away, and not used. Somebody sent me a text message. Make sure you include watches. And how many, I don't know how.
I didn't send the text message.
James Bond and all those, I mean, they could be having them on other devices now besides just a cell phone and all this other stuff. So it does say all electronic devices, but how do you put a watch away? But we want to make sure that they don't use those electronic devices during class. And if they do use them, they can be confiscated. Elementary students will not be able to use them at all during the day. Middle school students only under the supervision of staff for specific class purposes. High school students can use them during changing of the class and lunch periods and under the supervision of the staff. And at no time will they be able to use these devices during a test. Like I said, they'll be confiscated if they don't, and hopefully the classroom teacher will be able to, point these out and be able to get the students to follow them. But it's clear that you do not use your devices in classrooms.
Well, I do hope the principals follow this rule because it is a policy and it is not at their discretion to make this decision any longer. And I've had several say to me, oh, we don't pay attention to that policy. We're just going to make the decision to do what we want to do. So I'm going to be looking, and I know a lot of other people are as well. I saw a cute cartoon this morning, and it showed a couple sitting at the breakfast table with their phones out, and they had a baby in a high chair, and she looked to her husband and said, Jack, we're going to have to put our phones down. Johnny is got a cracker, and he's trying to text on the cracker. So, I mean, I haven't seen anything quite that bad, but I have seen kids at the beach with their parents, and their parents haven't got a clue as to where they are. They're just, device oriented, and that's it. So, there's a time and place for everything, and I think we're all pretty addicted to these devices a little bit too much. So hopefully this will help enhance our students' learning. And I think the high schools have, those pockets for shoes that they put a lot of things in. So I think it's the elementary that really worries me. So, okay, so if there's no other discussion, can we now vote? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
Shirley.
The ayes carry 5-0, and it passes unanimously. The next item number 56.
Did we do 55?
I believe we're on 55.
Are we on 55?
Which is policy 6.29, which is entitled Report of Misconduct, and there's just some very minor verbiage changes.
I would move that the board approve the advertisement of changes to School Board Policy 6.29 of the School Board Policy Library as presented.
Second. Bridget?
Just for clarification, this is to the General Counsel. These are because our board has done pretty exhaustive revamping of our in the reporting of complaints and misconduct. This is being changed due to...
This is based on changes from last year's legislation.
Legislative changes. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
It's when there's employee misconduct, we report it to DOE, but if it's against a child, we also have to report it to law enforcement. That's what this says.
If there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by voting aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by voting no. The ayes carry 5-0. It passes unanimously. Moving on to 56.
I recommend that the board approve the advertisement of changes to School Board Policy 7.70 regarding purchasing to the School Board Policy Library as presented.
Second.
Wait a minute. We're on 56?
Mr. Hardy, do you have any?
This is policy 7.70 that Ms. Corcoran and Ms. LaShawn worked on, and it is taking out, this is entitled Purchasing and Competitive Solicitations, and taking out thresholds, the numerical threshold, to instead say the formal bid threshold as established by State Board of Education Rule 6A-1.012. So it's tying it to the rule rather than to a specific amount, and doing a similar type of thing with regard to certain federal regulations.
There is no more discussion. Please vote now by signifying aye if you approve this.
Aye.
Aye.
All those against, please signify by saying no. The ayes carry 5-0. It passes unanimously. On to item 57.
Madam Chair, this is one that you also discussed at your workshop today. It's 8.10 safety. This has to do with empowering the chief of police to create general orders, and the discussion at the workshop was the draft language stated that those could not be inconsistent with provisions of state law or any collective bargaining agreement, and I think the board, after discussion, also agreed to insert it would not be inconsistent with school board policy.
Correct. Mrs. Ziegler.
I think I cut off Mrs. Zucker, for which I apologize, but I wanted to get that in before you made the motion.
I would move that the board approve the advertisement of changes to School Board Policy 8.10 of the School Board Policy Library as presented.
Second.
As amended.
As amended.
Oh, is it? Yes, as amended.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you. So I am glad we added the school board alignment. I'm troubled with this policy, and as I've shared in general, it is no reflection of anyone who's filling that seat. I have to think of a policy as who, no matter it's the position, it's not the person. So I want to make that very clear. But for me, I have some concerns about the fact that it would be such that we would, once this board decided to build a internal police department, this is, whether surprising or not, this is the first true policy this board has ever gone to adopt as it pertains to the police department, and we are a year plus in. So for me, my only major concern is I don't know how much we cut off our oversight as a governing board once we provide this. I think, as we talked about at the workshop, I think there are certain elements that I would like us as the governing board, who now oversees a law enforcement agency, should have some kind of directional ability. Now, I'm not saying that even if this was to be approved, we couldn't add additional direction. I think, Eric, Mr. Robinson had brought some examples up that the city of Sarasota have done, but I just have hesitation about this particular carte blanche authority without some caveats. So the school board policy is a big benefit, I think a good enhancement. I just want to make sure this board, as things go forward, we are able to address certain issues. I think we talked about rules of engagement, or again, law enforcement is not my area of expertise, but whether or not someone shall or may engage an active shooter. I think the investigation process, there's a number of different things. So my biggest concern is making sure that we as the board, as the final oversight body, are able to affect those changes. My understanding now that we've added the school board policy to it, that would still give us that regular oversight.
Sure. This doesn't prevent the board from taking any further action it wishes. It simply delegates to the chief of police the opportunity, in essence, to come up with his procedures, called general orders for law enforcement. But this makes clear that none of those procedures or general orders can contradict anything you have in policy. I've certainly had that conversation with the chief. He assures me that nothing he is proposing to do does, and if he feels that he needs to come up with a different policy in the future or come up with something that would contradict a school board policy, he now can't do it, assuming this gets passed, and he would come to the board to state his case for why that would need to happen, and then you would have to decide whether to grant him a waiver or some specific authority.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Robinson.
Well, I understand Ms. Ziegler's concern. To me, when I read the word general order, like Mr. Hardy said, I see procedure. And so I just substitute the word general order for procedure. I know police officers and military people, they like changing the definition of words, and they like using acronyms just to confuse people. And so when I see general orders, I just see procedures. And so because it doesn't conflict with policy, I see that the board still has oversight, just like any other department. But like I mentioned in the workshop, I think that I'm going to support this, although I think this is really step 3. I think we need to, at some point, pull back, given the fact it's been a year and a half, and we needed to look at some overarching policies that govern the police department, one of which is we should adopt the policy of the law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights. That's something that should be immortalized in policy because their rights are different than other staff members. So that's just one example. There's other examples like use of force policy. There's a number of examples that other people do. So I'm going to be supporting this because I think adding the fact that it can conflict with policy, policy-making board, that's fine. I agree with Ms. Zucker that we need to make sure we're not micromanaging, and that's why we're delegating this. That's the whole point of this policy, is to delegate the procedures, general orders to the chief. So I just hope that in the near future, we're going to be seeing some policies that are going to be a framework on how the law enforcement entity will function. Thank you.
I think I'm interested at the 30,000-foot level, and I have every confidence that Tim Enos knows what he's doing and that he's involved with state statute, which is really my biggest concern, Mrs. Ziegler, is more about if we're in compliance with all of the reporting and all of the mind-numbing things that we have to do, both in mental health and police work and Baker Acts and any other thing that we have to do now in terms of being mindful of taking care of our students. But I think this is a good start, and as I say, I have a great deal of confidence that we're moving forward in the right way. And I think putting that one little phrase in protects us, and then we can go from there. So if there are no other comments, hopefully, we can now vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The motion passes 5-0, and it passes unanimously. Next up, we have what item? Item 58?
Yes.
Am I on the right?
I move that the board approve the advertisement changes to School Board Policy 8.16 regarding emergency drills. The School Board Police Policy Library is presented.
Second.
And Madam Chair, this is the emergency drills policy. The changes are largely nomenclature. The big change here is statutory, and that is specifying when or how frequently drills for active shooters and hostage situations must be conducted, and that they have age-appropriate procedures with them.
Great.
I'm just sorry that we even have to have this policy, but...
Yes. If there's no comments, please let's take a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The motion carries 5-0, passes unanimously. Item number 59.
I move that the board approve the adoption of the resolution for Student Crime Watch program.
Second. Mr. Robinson is the second.
I don't normally do that.
Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes carry 5-0. Carries unanimously. Item number 60.
I would move that the agreement between USAB and the School Board of Sarasota County, Florida be approved.
Second. Any comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes carry 5-0. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 61.
Madam Chair, items 61 and 62 were included as amendments to the consent agenda.
That's right.
That's correct.
Are withdrawn.
That's correct. So we have no more new business? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, any comments for the good of the order? I think we've about commented out today.
Yep.
Have we had a long enough day? I mean, this has been quite a day, quite a good day. Our next monthly board meeting is Tuesday, July 16th, 2019 at 3 p.m. We do not have another workshop until August the 20th. The tentative budget meeting is Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019 at 4 p.m. The public hearing to adopt the tentative millage and budget meeting is Tuesday, July 30th, 2019 at 5:15 p.m.
Special called board meeting on Friday at 9 a.m.
And we have one tomorrow, right?
Oh, we have one tomorrow?
And we have one tomorrow afternoon at 2.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right.
Thank you all. Thank you, thank you. We're adjourned. I hardly think that